Hi. This is the first of two videos I'm making about the Malaysia My Second Home program. The first one is a little bit of a history, why I think it's a good program for Malaysia, and also addressing some of the misconceptions that I've read about and heard about. And I'd like to clarify, at least from my perspective, why I think there are misconceptions and not accurate. The second one will talk about some of the events that have happened in the last 2 or 3 years, which collectively have actually, in my opinion, done a lot of damage to the program and ultimately damage to Malaysia, which I believe is very unfortunate. Just to clarify, I came to Malaysia in 1996. I had worked here previously with American Express, and I came here and I started the Expat magazine, and the goal was to let resident expats understand more about Malaysia in the hope they would enjoy themselves more during their stay, learn more about the country, and when they left, they'll become unofficial ambassadors for Malaysia. So most of my efforts have been focused on the international community, spreading the good word about Malaysia, encouraging people to come here. And I was very gratified in 2010 when I was given unsolicited permanent residency to stay here. So let me talk now a little bit about Malaysia My Second Home and why I think it's good for Malaysia, and also a little bit about the people that come here. There are often misunderstandings. The reality is the program was very, very broad, too broad in my opinion. I would like to have seen subcategories of MM2H, visa holders, people who want a second home here, etc. The ones that contribute the most financially are obviously the people who relocate here, and a lot of people do not relocate here. The ones that most commonly do are retirees, and sometimes they sell up everything and move here, and parents of students at international schools where they specifically come to Malaysia as a family so their children could be taught in English. And this was quite common with people from South Korea and some from Japan. Then there are people who, what I call, want it as a back pocket visa. They come from troubled countries and they're concerned things may get worse, and they'd like a place where they can safely move to in the event they feel the need to actually leave their country. On top of that, there are people who work outside Malaysia who just set up Malaysia as their base, but they spend a lot of time outside the country, although in some cases they leave their families here. There are people who got the visa as part of a package, and many of the Chinese original applicants were actually given the MM2H visa when they bought property here. And of course, it was a great advantage to them because they don't get the 90-day visa on arrival that some countries do. They have to apply each time. So having the MM2H visa was a little welcome addition to the property purchase. Then there are people who are genuine second homers. These are the ones who have a home somewhere else in another country, but have bought a holiday home here, sometimes with a view to eventually retiring here, and sometimes simply as a place which they own, which they can visit a few times a year. So they again do not live here and don't spend so much time here, but they're all part of the program. And then there's a whole host of other reasons, as you can imagine, when a program is open to anybody over the age of 21. Again, if you had different visas for different people, you could tailor the age specifications and various other factors. But as you can see, the decision to apply a 90-day ruling right now will be a problem for some of the people I just outlined, because they don't spend that much time here and therefore they would suddenly become ineligible. Let's also look at why it's good for Malaysia. I think it's obvious that the ones who relocate here and spend here every day benefit all the Malaysians they come into contact with, whether it's a taxi driver, people at the hawker stores, retail outlets, hotels they stay at. They, on average, the ones that we reach, which are mostly retirees, tell us that on average, they spend about 120,000 ringgit a year in Malaysia. That's an attractive amount of money and nearly 40 times greater than the average tourist spends in Malaysia. So from that perspective, they are very, very attractive. They also make capital purchases. About 60% we found buy houses, a larger percentage buy cars here, they buy furniture, they do renovations. So they spend substantial amount of money. They help tourism, not only through their own travels, but because a lot of people visit them, as is normal when you have people living in another country. So people come to Malaysia who might not have come here under normal circumstances, but decide to visit because their friends or relatives are living here. Then they leave and they tell other people what a great time they had there, and there's a ripple effect, which I think is obvious. It's certainly an endorsement of the medical facilities because, particularly retirees, as you get older, you do get more concerned about your health. So having good hospitals and medical treatment available is important. So again, there's an endorsement here, as there is for the school system when people come here to have their children educated. There's also, it encourages foreign investment. That link is often not seen. But a lot of corporations look at the livability factor before they relocate. In fact, recognizing this, the Economist Intelligence Unit, which is a highly respected organization, actually created a livability section to advise companies on good places to live. So when people see that individuals from all over the world have chosen to live in a country, it is a huge endorsement of that country. And the fact they are welcomed is an endorsement of that country. Sadly, the converse is true. If you don't treat the Malaysia, my second home as well, then obviously people looking at foreign direct investment worry that they will not be treated well. And so it can have a negative effect. And of course, overall, it creates a positive image of Malaysia, which I think the country should welcome. The fact that the well-respected magazine International Living considers Malaysia the best place to retire in Asia is a great endorsement and good publicity in the international media. It's a win-win, as I see it. Expats get to live in a country they enjoy, and all the feedback we get is the vast majority are very happy living here, and Malaysia gets the benefits that I just outlined. So where do the people come from who've joined the program? Well, the majority, almost a third, come from China, and a lot of those never relocated here. They just got the package when they bought the house. Another big group was the Japanese, and initially a lot of those did not actually relocate here. They just like to spend several months here each year before returning to Japan, because long stay vacations are very common among the Japanese. In recent years, more Japanese have actually relocated here, but these two groups together account for about 42% of all the applicants, and I would say the majority are not living here. Then you've also got people from Bangladesh, the UK and South Korea, which makes up another third of the applicants, and then there's another third which is from all over the world. So the program has attracted a lot of people. What we've seen, it has not been marketed that heavily internationally, so a lot of it has been through word of mouth. And you can see that over the last 9 years, the average annual take-up is about double what it was in the first 9 years as word has spread about the program and the positive feedback has been spread. Now let's talk about some of the misunderstandings about the program. And honestly, when I read some of these things and hear them, I'm disappointed that there is so much misunderstanding within Malaysia about the program. One of the first ones, that was a comment made by the minister when he announced the new program, was the concerns that he said existed among some Malaysians about all these foreigners living here. Well, obviously, any country gets concerned if very large numbers of foreigners move here. But that's not the case with Malaysia, my second home. In fact, the minister said we're going to put a ceiling in at 1% of the population, which will be over 300,000 people. They're not even close to 300,000 people. When you take the approved people plus dependents, it probably comes out to slightly under 100,000. I doubt if there are more than 30,000 people with the visa still living in Malaysia. So 30,000 is only about 10% of the limit that's been set on the program. So it's unlikely it would ever achieve that 1% goal because people are constantly dropping off the program. Another factor that should be considered is that since the program started, the Malaysian population has gone up by over 8 million people. And that's against an increase of 30,000 people from the Malaysia My Second Home program. In fact, it's even probably hard to find a Malaysian My Second Home visa holder unless you happen to live in about one of 2 or 3 cities. They're not that visible. There are a lot of other foreigners living here, And if you look at the numbers, it's estimated that some 250,000 people are living here with a visa for employment and their dependents. There's apparently 2 to 3 million migrant workers here, legal and illegal. And of course, there are a lot of tourists here. The target for 2020 Visit Malaysia was 100 million tourists. So against these numbers, you can see that MM2H visa holders are a very small number indeed, but they do make a nice contribution to the country, which I think should be welcome. Another concern is that the behavior of some of these tourists of these visa holders is not attractive. They don't understand our values. They create scenes. And that again is a huge misunderstanding. The people who come here, particularly the ones who come here to retire and even the ones who are parents of children, are older, more mature people. They want to be accepted. They're not coming here to riot, have a great time. They want to enjoy themselves, but they also want to be accepted and they want to respect the country. And that is true of the vast majority of them. Sadly, it's true that of the vast majority of tourists, particularly the young ones, their primary objective is to have as much fun as possible during their vacation. And sometimes that leads to rather excessive behavior. So tourists, generally speaking, present the greatest threat to stability of the country, but certainly not the people that have relocated here. In fact, when you look at the financial contribution, in 2016, which was the best year for tourists that Malaysia has had, they attracted 26 million people, nearly 27 million people. They spent about 82 billion ringgit, according to Tourism Malaysia. That's a lot of money. But if you took all the visa holders for MM2H and all their dependents, and if they had all moved here, they would have contributed about 6 billion. So you can see that that tiny number of people can produce a significant amount of money. So it's a bit strange to me that there are concerns about having these people stay here, acting respectfully, and yet a huge amount of money is spent trying to get tourists to come into Malaysia, who in my opinion are less attractive guests. Another concern or comment that's been made is the quality issue. I think it's perhaps an unfortunate term, because the implication is that people who make income of 40,000 are better quality than those that don't. I could put myself up as an example. I ran American Express here. During that time, I was made to feel most welcome, and that's how I came to love Malaysia. We managed to get ourselves appointed the official card for Visit Malaysia year, and because the tourism department was so happy with what we did, they gave us the official card status during the next Visit Malaysia year. However, on retiring from American Express, I do not get a pension of 40,000 ringgit a year, even if I'd stayed through to retirement age. So then apparently I would not have been the quality person I was when I was employed here, and I would not be welcome under the new program. And I think that's sad, because I know there are a lot of people currently living here with employment passes who wanted to join the program when they retired, and many have written to me and say, I don't know what I'm going to do now because I won't be able to stay here. So that again is an unfortunate outcome of some of the recent decisions. The idea that they are somehow a burden on Malaysia and the economy is completely wrong. They fund themselves, they bring in foreign exchange, they get no real benefit from living here that isn't available to anyone else. Yes, they can get the subsidized fuel if they have a car, but a tourist who rents a car also gets subsidized fuel. I mean, there's no special benefits that go with the program. And that's quite unusual, because there are a lot of competitive programs around the world, because a lot of countries are saying, wow, this is a great way to get more money and more recognition and more positive stories about our country. So let's encourage people to come and retire here and settle here. And they often throw in a lot of additional benefits to attract them. But in Malaysia, there are so many natural benefits, the food, the people, the climate, the holiday destinations, that it's not necessary to add those benefits. So they come here without expecting them. And that's, I think, a good endorsement of the program and a great endorsement of Malaysia, which I would have thought you'd like to spread out to the rest of the world. Then there is the idea that somehow they're going to claim Malaysian citizenship or even permanent residency. It's very explicitly stated in the applications that this is not a pathway to either permanent residency or citizenship. And although some people ask the question when they first apply, is it possible? We always very clearly state, no, it's not. And there's no issue with that. So no one's trying to find a way to get citizenship through this visa. There's also stories about the impact on property. They do buy properties when they think they're going to be here long term, but they're not huge property purchases. If you compare the number of houses purchased by MM2H each year compared to the rest of the people resident here, it's a very, very small percentage. But like any niche market, if you're trying to sell a product, you're happy for every additional bit of income or sales you can make. And in my opinion, that should be the same for the MM2H program. It's a huge positive for Malaysia, and it does present a good image of the country internationally. It creates money and foreign exchange for Malaysia. It helps Malaysian businesses when money is spent with them. So that seems to me to be a very good reason to keep the program running. And I'm not convinced at this point, from anything I've heard, that changing the rules or changing anything about the program other than creating separate visas for different segments would be necessary or even beneficial. So in my next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a bit more about a whole series of things that have happened over the last 3 years, which sadly, and I hopefully it will be appreciated when people listen to it, have been quite negative in terms of what they've done to the program, what the people who are on the visa have come to think about the program, and basically how we've gone from a program which is highly admired, which has a lot of positive reviews, to almost the exact opposite. And I think that is indeed unfortunate. Unfortunate for the people who wanted to come and live here under the program, but also unfortunate for Malaysia and the people of Malaysia. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.